Owen Ellsworth had crumpled up 3 pieces of paper already, and the fourth sat in front of him on the scarred kitchen table, looking no better than the others. His daughter Lily slept in the next room, her belly still full from 2 days ago, when Mira Greenbrook had arrived at their homestead with enough food to feed 20 children instead of the modest gathering of 5 he had planned. He had not asked for it. He had not even hinted. But somehow the orc woman who ran the tavern and kitchen 3 miles down the valley road had learned that Lily's birthday was coming, that her mother had died the winter before, and that Owen was stretching his coin so thin he could see daylight through it. The morning of the party, Mira had simply appeared with her cart, her strong green arms carrying basket after basket of golden pastries, roasted chicken, berry tarts, and a cake decorated with candied violets that made Lily cry with joy. When Owen had stammered something about payment, about needing a few weeks to scrape it together, Mira had looked at him with those dark eyes beneath her heavy brow and said, "It is a gift. Your girl deserves a proper birthday." Then she had helped set everything out, stayed long enough to see Lily's face light up, and left before he could find the words caught somewhere between his chest and his throat. That had been 2 days ago. 2 days of trying to write a simple thank you note. 2 days of failing. Owen picked up his pen again, dipped it, and stared at the blank space below "Dear Mira." His hand would not move. Every phrase that came to mind felt wrong, too formal, too casual, too small for what she had done. He set the pen down and scrubbed his face with his hands. The pre-dawn light was starting to creep through the window. He had been at this for an hour already, and Lily would wake soon expecting breakfast. The problem, he realized as he stared at the crumpled attempts scattered across the table, was that he did not know how to accept something this large. He knew how to work. He knew how to provide. His whole life had been built on the bedrock of doing for others, of being the man people could rely on. First in the militia, then as a husband and father, and now as both parents to a 6-year-old girl who looked at him like he held the sun and moon in his calloused hands. But receiving, taking charity, even kindly meant, that was foreign territory, and it sat in his gut like a stone. He picked up the first crumpled draft and smoothed it out. "Dear Mira, thank you for the food. It was very kind. Owen." He had crossed it out after reading it twice. It sounded like he was thanking her for passing the salt. The second attempt had been longer but worse. He had tried to explain how much it meant, how Lily had talked about nothing else for 2 days, how he had been worried about disappointing her. But reading it back, it had sounded like he was making excuses for being poor, and his pride had flared hot enough that he had balled it up and thrown it across the room. The third had been somewhere in between, stilted and awkward, and he had given up halfway through. Now the fourth sat before him, blank and accusatory. Owen stood and walked to the window. Outside, the valley was beginning to show itself in shades of gray and purple. His small farmstead, 10 acres of rocky soil that he coaxed into producing enough to get by, spread out in the pre-dawn gloom. The barn needed new shingles. The fence line sagged in 3 places. His best plow had a crack in the blade that would need mending before spring planting. Everything needed something, and there was never enough time or coin to give it. He had known it would be this way when he had taken the land grant after his service in the border militia ended. 4 years of fighting raiders and worse had earned him this patch of hard earth, and the right to work it until his back gave out. He had been glad for it. Margaret had been glad too, had seen the little farmhouse and declared it perfect, had planted herbs by the door and curtains in the windows. Then Lily had come, red-faced and squalling and perfect, and for 3 years they had been happy in the way that tired, poor, hard-working people could be happy. Then last winter, a fever had swept through the valley. Margaret had caught it nursing a neighbor's child. She had died within a week. Owen pushed the memory away and turned back to the table. He needed to finish this note. Mira deserved better than his silence. He sat down, picked up the pen, and began again. Dear Mira, I do not have the words to properly thank you for what you did for Lily. The party was more than I could have given her, and seeing her so happy meant more to me than I can say. You have a generous heart. With gratitude, Owen. He read it 3 times. It was better. Not good, but better. It would have to do. Except when he pictured handing it to her, imagined her reading those careful, distant words. Something in his chest twisted. She had given freely, with warmth and presence, and he was responding with the kind of note a man might send to a creditor after a payment extension. He crumpled the 4th draft and dropped his head into his hands. From the next room, he heard Lily stirring. Time was up. The note would have to wait another day. Owen stood and went to start breakfast, the weight of an unfinished thank you settling onto the pile of everything else he carried. Lily chattered through breakfast about the birthday party, just as she had through every meal since. She described the cake again, the way the violets had tasted like flowers and sugar, the way Sarah and Tom and the other children had all been jealous of how pretty it was. Owen listened and nodded and felt the gratitude twist tighter in his chest. After breakfast, he set Lily to her letters while he went out to mend the fence line. The work was cold and repetitive, and it gave him too much time to think. About the note, about Mira. About the way she had smiled at Lily, soft and genuine, her small tusks showing. About the careful way she had arranged the food on the table, making it look festive and abundant. He had seen Mira around the valley for the better part of a year, ever since she had taken over the old tavern building and turned it into a gathering place that served simple, good food. People had been wary at first, an orc woman running a kitchen, but her cooking had won them over. She was quiet and kept to herself, but she was kind to the children who came through and fair in her prices. Owen had eaten there twice, both times when he had business in that part of the valley that ran too long to make it home for supper. The food had been excellent. Mira had been polite and professional, had brought his plate and his beer and had not lingered to chat. He had thought her handsome, in the way of orc women, with strong features and clever hands. But he had been a year widowed and not ready to notice such things. So he had paid and left and not thought much of it beyond remembering where to go when he needed a hot meal away from home. Now she had shown him a kindness so large he did not know how to hold it, and he could not even write a decent thank you note. He was hammering a post back into alignment when he heard the rattle of a cart on the road. He looked up and felt his stomach drop. Mira's cart, pulled by her sturdy draft mule, was coming up the lane toward his farmstead. Owen set down his hammer and wiped his hands on his trousers, his mind racing. He was not ready. He still had not finished the note. He did not have anything prepared to say in person that would be any better than the words he could not get onto paper. Mira pulled the cart to a stop near the barn and climbed down. She wore a simple work dress and an apron, and her dark hair was pulled back in a thick braid. She raised a hand in greeting. "Good morning, Owen," she called. Her voice was low and warm, with the slight roughness that came with orcish throats. "Morning," Owen managed, walking toward her. "I did not expect to see you out this way." Mira reached into the back of the cart and pulled out a covered basket. "I was taking the road toward the Miller farmstead and thought I would stop. Lily left her hair ribbon at the tavern during the party. I thought she might want it back." She held out the basket, and Owen saw the little blue ribbon tucked on top of what looked like a loaf of fresh bread and a small pot of jam. "That's kind of you," Owen said, taking the basket. The bread was still warm. "You did not need to bring extra." Mira shrugged, a small smile touching her lips. I had extra from this morning's baking. No sense letting it go stale when you can use it. There it was again. Easy generosity given without ceremony or expectation. Owen felt the inadequacy of his unfinished note like a physical weight. "Mira," he started, then stopped. The words tangled in his throat. "I have been meaning to properly thank you. For the party. What you did for Lily, it was more than generous. It was," he paused, searching. "It meant everything. I have been trying to write you a note, but I cannot seem to find the right words." Mira's expression softened. "You do not need to write anything, Owen. I was happy to do it. Your daughter is a sweet girl, and every child deserves to feel special on their birthday." "Still," Owen said, "I should give you something to repay you." "It was a gift," Mira said, her tone gentle but firm. "Gifts do not need repayment." Owen felt heat rise in his face, part embarrassment and part frustration. "I do not take charity well," he admitted. Mira studied him for a moment, her dark eyes thoughtful. "It is not charity to care about a neighbor," she said quietly. "But I understand. Pride is a heavy thing to carry." She said it without judgment, and somehow that made it worse. Owen looked down at the basket in his hands, at the bread and jam and the little blue ribbon. "Thank you," he said finally. "For all of it, I mean that." Mira nodded. "I know you do." She glanced toward the farmstead, where Lily had appeared in the doorway, alerted by the sound of voices. "I should let you get back to your work." She climbed back onto the cart, and Owen stepped back. But before she could snap the reins, he heard himself say, "If you ever need help with anything, around the tavern or elsewhere, I am handy with tools and I can lift heavy things. I would be glad to return the favor." Mira looked at him, and for a moment something flickered in her expression that he could not quite read. Then she smiled. "I will keep that in mind. The kitchen always has something that needs fixing." She clicked to the mule and turned the cart back toward the road. Owen watched her go, the basket still in his hands, and felt like he had just barely managed to say one small true thing in a conversation full of all the things he could not say. Lily ran up beside him, tugging on his sleeve. "Papa, was that Miss Mira? Did she bring my ribbon?" "She did," Owen said, handing Lily the basket so she could retrieve it, "and some bread." Lily pulled out the ribbon and tied it immediately into her hair, then peered into the basket. "It smells good. Can we have some with lunch?" "We can," Owen said. Lily beamed and skipped back toward the house, and Owen followed more slowly, his mind already turning over the offer he had made. He had meant it. If Mira needed help, he would give it. It would not balance the scales, not entirely, but it would be something. It would be a start. 3 days passed before Owen found an excuse to go to the tavern. He told himself he needed to ask around about buying seed for spring planting, and the tavern was where valley folk gathered to do business. It was not about seeing Mira. It was just practical. He brought Lily with him, since the neighbor girl who sometimes watched her was sick. Lily was thrilled at the prospect of eating at the tavern again, and talked the entire 3-mile walk about whether Miss Mira would have berry tarts. The tavern sat at a crossroads where the valley road met the route heading up into the hills. It was a solid building, old timber and stone, with a wide front room that served as both dining area and gathering space. A large fireplace dominated one wall, and the kitchen was visible through an open doorway at the back. When Owen and Lily walked in, the place was moderately busy with the lunch crowd. A handful of farmers and a traveling peddler occupied the tables. The smell of roasting meat and fresh bread filled the air. Mira emerged from the kitchen carrying 2 plates. She spotted them and her face brightened. "Owen, Lily, sit wherever you like. I will be with you in a moment." Lily chose a table near the fireplace, and Owen sat across from her. He watched Mira work, noting the efficiency of her movements, the way she balanced 3 tasks at once, the polite words she had for every customer. She looked tired, he thought. There were shadows under her eyes. When she finally came to their table, she had a smile for Lily and a nod for Owen. "What can I get for you today?" Lily ordered stew and bread, her eyes hopeful for a tart after. Owen asked for the same. "Coming right up," Mira said, but as she turned to go, Owen spoke. "Mira, a moment," she paused, looking back. "I meant what I said the other day," Owen said quietly. "If you need help with anything, I am available. I noticed one of your shutters is hanging crooked, and that chimney looks like it could use a cleaning before winter really sets in." Mira tilted her head slightly, considering him. "The shutter has been crooked for a month," she admitted. "I keep meaning to fix it, but there is always something else that needs doing." "I could take a look after we eat," Owen offered, "if you have the time." For a moment, Mira looked like she might refuse. Then she glanced at the crooked shutter, visible through the front window, and sighed. "I would appreciate that, thank you." She brought their food, and Owen and Lily ate while the lunch crowd gradually thinned. Lily got her tart, a small one with preserved cherries, and her delight was so transparent that Mira laughed. "You are easy to please," Mira told her. "Your tarts are the best in the whole valley," Lily said seriously, and Mira's expression went soft in a way that made Owen's chest feel strange. After they finished eating, Owen sent Lily to sit by the fire with a slate and chalk to practice her numbers while he went outside to examine the shutter. It took him only a few minutes to identify the problem, a hinge that had worked loose. He went back in to ask Mira if she had tools. She led him to a small storage room off the kitchen that was in a state of controlled chaos. Tools were jumbled in a crate. Sacks of flour and grain were stacked against one wall, and a broken chair sat in the corner awaiting repair. "I am not very organized back here," Mira said, sounding embarrassed. "You are busy," Owen said, digging through the crate until he found a screwdriver that would work. "Running this place alone is a lot." "It is," Mira agreed, "but I like the work, most days." Owen fixed the shutter, then asked about the chimney. Mira admitted she had been worried about it but had not had time to climb up and look. Owen borrowed a ladder and spent the better part of an hour clearing out the creosote buildup that could have started a fire. When he climbed down, Mira was waiting with a cup of cider and a concerned expression. "You did not have to do all that," she said. "I wanted to," Owen said, accepting the cider. "It was spiced and warm, perfect for the chill afternoon. You did something kind for me. This is me saying thank you." Mira looked at him for a long moment, and Owen had the sense that she was weighing his words for sincerity. Whatever she found must have satisfied her, because she nodded. "Then I will say thank you in return." They stood there in the yard, the late afternoon sun slanting through the trees, and Owen felt something shift. Not large, not dramatic, just a small easing like a door opening a crack. "If you think of other things that need doing, let me know," Owen said. "I am not the best carpenter in the valley, but I am competent." Mira smiled, her tusks catching the light. "I will. And Owen, you are welcome to bring Lily by any time. I like having her around." Owen felt warmth bloom in his chest that had nothing to do with the cider. She would like that. "She has not stopped talking about your cake." "Then I will have to make sure to save her a slice when I bake next," Mira said. Owen collected Lily, who had fallen asleep by the fire, and carried her home as the sun set. That night, he sat down at the kitchen table and pulled out a fresh piece of paper. "Dear Mira," he wrote, "thank you for the birthday party and for letting me help with the shutter and chimney. It felt good to repay your kindness, even in a small way. You are doing good work at the tavern, and I hope you know that the valley is better for having you in it. Yours, Owen." He read it twice. It still was not everything he wanted to say, but it felt more honest than the other attempts. He folded it carefully, and set it aside to deliver the next time he saw her. But the next time he saw her, 3 days later when he stopped by to ask if she needed anything else fixed, the note stayed in his pocket. Because she mentioned that the back door was sticking, and he found himself offering to plane it down. And by the time he was done, she had fed him lunch and sent him home with a jar of her pickled vegetables. The note began to feel insufficient again. Owen started stopping by the tavern once a week, sometimes with Lily and sometimes alone. There was always something small that needed fixing: a wobbly table leg, a leaking rain barrel, a shelf that was pulling away from the wall. He never stayed long, just enough to do the repair and share a cup of cider or a quick meal. Mira, in turn, began sending him home with food. Never a full meal, nothing that felt like charity. Just extra bread, or a portion of stew, or once a whole roasted chicken that she claimed she had overestimated for the day's business. They did not talk much during these visits, but the silence was comfortable. Owen learned that Mira had come to the valley from a settlement further east, that she had bought the tavern with money saved from years of working in other kitchens, that she had always dreamed of having her own place. Mira learned that Owen had served in the border militia, that he was still learning to cook edible meals for Lily, that he missed his wife, but was trying to build a good life despite the grief. The note stayed in Owen's pocket, and then in his desk drawer, and then buried under a stack of other papers. He told himself he would finish it properly, would find the right words eventually. But every time he tried, the scope of what he needed to say had grown larger. It was not just about the birthday party anymore. It was about the way Mira smiled at Lily, the way she always had time to answer a question or share a story, even when she was clearly exhausted. The way she treated Owen like a friend instead of a customer, like his help was valued instead of pitied. It was about the way his heart had started to lift when he came around the bend in the road and saw the tavern. The way he found himself thinking of excuses to stop by. The way he had started noticing the graceful strength of her hands, the warmth in her voice, the intelligence in her dark eyes. Owen was not a fool. He knew what was happening. He was falling for her, slowly and steadily, the way a river carved through stone. The problem was, he had no idea if she felt anything similar. She was kind to him, but she was kind to everyone. She accepted his help, but she never asked for it. And there was the matter of what the valley would think. A human man and an orc woman, though Owen found he cared about that less with every passing week. Winter settled into the valley properly, and the tavern became even more of a gathering place. People came to escape the cold, to share news, to do business. Mira worked from before dawn until after dark, and Owen began to worry that she was pushing herself too hard. He was proven right 2 weeks before the solstice, when he arrived to fix a cracked window pane and found the tavern closed in the middle of the day. Owen felt a spike of alarm. He knocked on the door, and when there was no answer, he tried the latch. It was unlocked. He pushed the door open and called out, "Mira!" A groan came from the direction of the kitchen. Owen hurried back and found Mira sitting on the floor, her back against the wall, her face pale. Her right hand was wrapped in a cloth that was stained with blood. "What happened?" Owen demanded, dropping to his knees beside her. "Knife slipped," Mira said, her voice tight with pain. "Cut myself badly. I was trying to bandage it, but I started feeling faint." Owen carefully unwrapped the cloth. The cut was deep, across her palm, and still bleeding. "This needs stitching," he said. "I know," Mira said. "I was going to close up and walk to the healer, but I sat down for a moment and could not seem to get back up." "You have lost too much blood," Owen said. He looked around and spotted a clean apron hanging on a hook. He grabbed it and tore it into strips, then wrapped her hand tightly. "Can you stand?" "I think so," Mira said, but when Owen helped her to her feet, she swayed. He caught her one arm around her waist and felt how cold she was. "I am taking you to the healer," Owen said. "Now." The healer lived a mile down the road. Owen half carried Mira to his wagon, which he had brought to haul the new window pane, and settled her on the seat. He drove faster than was safe on the icy road, but Mira did not complain. She was silent, her breathing shallow. The healer, an older woman named Agnes, took one look at Mira's hand and ushered them inside. She made Mira lie down, gave her something for the pain, and set to cleaning and stitching the wound. Owen waited, pacing the small front room, his heart hammering. He had seen men hurt worse in the militia, had seen death, but watching Mira's pale face as Agnes worked made him feel helpless in a way he had not felt in years. When Agnes finally emerged, she looked tired. "She will be fine, but she needs rest. That hand will take weeks to heal properly, and she should not be using it for any heavy work." "I will make sure she rests," Owen said. Agnes raised an eyebrow. "Will you now?" Owen met her gaze. "Yes." Agnes studied him, then nodded. "She can stay here tonight. I want to watch her in case the bleeding starts again. You can take her home tomorrow." Owen agreed, though he hated the idea of leaving Mira, but there was Lily to think about, and he needed to get home before dark. He went back to the room where Mira lay, her hand wrapped in fresh bandages, her eyes closed. He stood there for a moment, looking at her, and felt the full weight of his feelings crash over him. He cared about her, more than cared. The thought of losing her, even to something as simple as a knife wound, made his chest ache. Quietly, he left. The next morning, Owen returned to the healer's house with Lily. Mira was awake and looked better, though still weak. She smiled when she saw Lily, who ran to her and carefully hugged her. "I am glad you are all right, Miss Mira," Lily said. "Thank you, sweetheart," Mira said. "I am sorry for scaring everyone." Owen helped Mira to the wagon and drove her back to the tavern. Once there, he surveyed the situation. The kitchen was a mess from the accident. The tavern had been closed for a day, and Mira, with her injured hand, was not going to be able to run the place alone for weeks. "You need help," Owen said. Mira looked like she wanted to argue, but she just sighed. "I know. But I cannot afford to hire anyone." "You do not need to hire me," Owen said. "I will help." Mira stared at him. "Owen, you have your own farm to run." "The farm is mostly sleeping for winter," Owen said. "I have time, and you need someone." "I cannot ask you to do that," Mira said. "You are not asking, I am offering." Owen crossed his arms. "Let me help, Mira, please." Mira looked at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face. Then slowly she nodded. "All right, thank you." So Owen became a fixture at the tavern. He arrived every morning, bringing Lily with him. While Mira directed him from a chair, her hand carefully elevated, Owen learned to run the kitchen. He was not a great cook, but he could follow Mira's recipes and instructions. He learned to make the simple, hearty meals that the tavern was known for: stew, roasted chicken, fresh bread. Lily helped too, sweeping floors and setting tables, delighted to be part of the work. The valley folk were surprised at first to see Owen behind the counter, but they adapted. Some made jokes about him being Mira's new assistant. Others simply accepted it, grateful that the tavern had not closed. Owen and Mira fell into a rhythm. Mornings were for prep work. Midday was the lunch rush. Afternoons were quieter, time for cleaning and restocking. Evenings brought the supper crowd. Through it all they talked, more than they ever had before. Mira told him about growing up in an orc settlement, about the prejudice she had faced when she left to work in human towns, about the dream she had nurtured of having a place that was hers. Owen told her about the militia years, about meeting Margaret, about the grief and fear that had followed her death. They learned each other's rhythms. Owen learned that Mira hummed when she was thinking through a problem. Mira learned that Owen was left-handed and had a scar on his shoulder from a raider's arrow. They learned to work side by side in the small kitchen without getting in each other's way. And slowly, carefully, something deepened between them. Owen noticed the way Mira's face lit up when he arrived each morning. Mira noticed the way Owen always made sure she was comfortable, that she had everything she needed, that she was not pushing herself too hard. Lily noticed too, with the blunt observation of a 6-year-old. One evening, as Owen was driving them home, she said, "Papa, do you like Miss Mira?" Owen nearly fumbled the reins. "Of course I like her. She is a good friend." "No, I mean, do you like her like you liked Mama?" Lily asked. Owen was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Would that bother you?" "If I did," Lily considered this. "No," she said finally. "Mama is gone, and Miss Mira is nice. She makes you smile." Owen felt his throat tighten. "She does," he agreed quietly. "Then you should tell her," Lily said, with the certainty of a child who saw no reason to complicate things. If only it were that simple, Owen thought. 2 weeks passed. Mira's hand began to heal, though she still could not use it for anything strenuous. Owen continued to help, and the tavern continued to run. The valley folk had fully accepted the new arrangement and business was steady. Then, one afternoon while Mira was napping and Lily was occupied with a drawing, a stranger walked into the tavern. He was a tall man, well dressed in a way that marked him as someone with money. He had a thin face and cold eyes, and when he looked around the tavern, his expression was calculating. "Can I help you?" Owen asked, wiping down the counter. "I am looking for Mira Greenbrook," the man said. "She is resting," Owen said. "Can I give her a message?" The man's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "A friend," Owen said evenly. "Now, what is your business with Mira?" The man reached into his coat and pulled out a folded document. He set it on the counter with a snap. "Tell her that Silas Harding sent me. She has 3 months left to pay what she owes, or the property reverts to him." Owen felt ice settle into his stomach. "What are you talking about?" "Miss Greenbrook bought this property on a loan," the man said. "The final payment was due at the end of last year. She has not paid. Mr. Harding has been patient, but his patience is running out. She has until the spring equinox to settle her debt, or he will take possession of the tavern." The man turned and walked out, leaving the document on the counter. Owen picked it up and read it. It was a contract, dense with legal language, but the essentials were clear. Mira owed a significant sum of money. The final payment had been due 2 months ago. If she did not pay by the spring equinox, she would lose everything. Mira emerged from the back room a few minutes later, rubbing her eyes. She saw the document in Owen's hand and went very still. "What is that?" she asked, though her voice suggested she already knew. A man came by. "From Silas Harding." Owen handed her the paper. Mira took it, her face draining of color as she read. When she finished, she sank into a chair. "Mira, what is this about?" Owen asked gently. Mira was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "When I bought the tavern, I did not have quite enough money. Harding offered me a loan to cover the difference. The terms seemed fair at the time. I was supposed to make payments over 2 years, with the final lump sum due at the end of last year." "But you did not pay it," Owen said. "I could not," Mira said, her voice breaking. "I had the money saved, but then there was a bad storm last fall. The roof was damaged. I had to use almost everything I had saved to fix it, or the whole building would have been ruined. I thought I could earn it back, that I could ask Harding for an extension, but then winter came and business slowed, and I have been barely keeping up." She looked up at Owen, and there were tears in her eyes. "I am going to lose this place, everything I have worked for." Owen felt anger kindle in his chest, not at Mira but at the situation, at Silas Harding, at the unfairness of it. How much do you owe? Mira named a sum that made Owen wince. It was more than he had saved. More than he could scrape together in 3 months, even if he sold everything that was not nailed down. There has to be a way, Owen said. If there is, I have not found it, Mira said. She wiped her eyes, looking exhausted. I have been trying to figure it out for months. But I cannot see a solution. Owen pulled up a chair and sat across from her. Then we will figure it out together. Mira looked at him and something in her expression cracked. Owen, this is not your problem. You are my friend, Owen said. That makes it my problem. They sat together in the quiet tavern, the weight of the debt hanging over them. And Owen thought about birthday parties and crumpled thank-you notes, and all the ways that caring for someone made their burdens yours. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Owen sat at his kitchen table and made a list. He wrote down every asset he had, every possible way to raise money. He could sell his plow, though he would need it in the spring. He could sell some of his livestock, though that would hurt his ability to support Lily. He could take on extra work, though winter was a slow time for hiring. No matter how he calculated it, he came up short, but there had to be a way. Over the next week, Owen asked around the valley. He was careful not to reveal too much about Mira's situation, but he felt out whether anyone needed work done, whether there were opportunities to earn extra coin. He found a few small jobs, repairs and hauling, but nothing that would make a real difference. Meanwhile, he continued to help Mira at the tavern. She was quieter now, the worry a constant shadow in her eyes. Owen tried to lighten her spirits when he could, cracking small jokes, making sure she ate, distracting her with stories. It helped a little. One afternoon, while Mira was managing the lunch crowd with her good hand and Owen was in the kitchen preparing the evening stew, Lily came running in from where she had been playing outside. "Papa, there is a man asking for Miss Mira, and he does not look friendly," she said. Owen wiped his hands and went to the front room. A heavy-set man in fine clothes stood by the door, looking around with an expression of disdain. This, Owen guessed, was Silas Harding. Mira had gone pale. "Mr. Harding," she said, "I was not expecting you." "I thought I would check on my investment," Harding said. His voice was smooth and cold. "I see you are still operating despite your financial difficulties." "I am keeping up with the business," Mira said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Are you?" Harding looked around again. "This place is shabby, half empty. I wonder if it is even worth what you owe me." "The tavern is worth every penny," Owen said, stepping forward, "and more." Harding turned his cold gaze on Owen. "And who are you?" "A friend of Miss Greenbrook," Owen said. "Ah, the hired help." Harding's lip curled. "Tell me, does she pay you, or are you working out of charity?" Owen felt his temper flare, but he kept his voice level. "I am here because Mira is a good person who deserves support." "How touching," Harding said. He turned back to Mira. "You have until the equinox, Miss Greenbrook. Not a day more. If you cannot pay, I will take possession of this property and sell it to someone who can actually make it profitable." He walked out without another word. Mira stood very still, her hands clenched at her sides. Then suddenly she turned and walked quickly toward the back room. Owen followed her. He found her in the storage room, her back against the wall, her breath coming in short gasps. "Mira," he said gently. "I am going to lose it," she said. "Everything. I should never have taken the loan. I should have waited, saved more, been smarter." "You did what you had to do," Owen said. "This is not your fault." "It feels like it is," Mira said. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor and Owen sat beside her. They sat in silence for a while. Then Owen said, "I have been thinking, what if we brought in more business, had a special event, something that would draw people from all over the valley?" Mira looked at him. "Like what?" "A feast," Owen said. "For the solstice." We make it a real event, charge a fair price for a good meal and entertainment. If we can get enough people, it could bring in significant money. Mira considered this. It is a good idea, but I do not know if it would be enough, and we would need to invest money up front for supplies. I can cover the supplies, Owen said. Call it a loan if you want. We can figure out repayment later. Owen, I cannot ask you to risk your money on this, Mira said. You are not asking, I am offering. Owen met her eyes. Let me help, Mira, please. Mira looked at him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. All right, we will try. They planned the solstice feast with the focus of generals planning a campaign. Mira designed a menu that would impress but not break them. Roasted meats, root vegetables, fresh bread, pies, and tarts. Owen spread word throughout the valley, talking up the event at every opportunity. Lily helped make invitations, carefully copying out the details in her best handwriting. The response was encouraging. People liked Mira, liked the tavern, and the idea of a proper celebration appealed to them. Reservations began to come in. Owen threw himself into the preparations. He chopped wood for the fires. He hauled supplies. He helped Mira test recipes. As the solstice approached, he found himself spending almost all his time at the tavern, often staying late into the evening after Lily had fallen asleep by the fire. One night, as they worked side by side to prepare a test batch of pies, Mira said quietly, I do not know what I would do without you, Owen. Owen looked up from the dough he was rolling. You would manage, you are strong. I am tired, Mira admitted. I have been tired for a long time. But when you are here, it feels easier. Owen felt his heart thud in his chest. I like being here, he said. With you. Mira met his eyes, and for a moment the air between them felt charged. Then Lily stirred in her sleep by the fire, and the moment passed. But it stayed with Owen, that look in Mira's eyes, the way her voice had softened. He thought about it as he drove home. He thought about it as he lay in bed, unable to sleep. He thought about the thank you note he had never finished, and all the things he wanted to say that went far beyond gratitude. The solstice feast arrived. The tavern had been transformed. Owen and Mira had cleaned and decorated, hanging garlands of winter greenery and setting up extra tables. The kitchen was stocked and ready. The food was prepared or staged to be cooked. People began arriving in the late afternoon, and by evening the tavern was packed. Every table was full. The fireplace roared. The smell of roasting meat and fresh bread filled the air. Owen worked the room while Mira managed the kitchen, her hand now healed enough to be useful. He poured drinks, carried plates, made conversation. He saw people from all over the valley, some he knew well and some he barely recognized. They ate and drank and laughed, and the tavern was alive in a way he had never seen. It was a success. A clear, undeniable success. But as the evening wore on and Owen tallied the numbers in his head, he realized it still was not going to be enough. They would make good money, better than Mira had made in weeks, but it would not cover the full debt. He saw Mira realize it too. Late in the evening, when the crowd had thinned and only a few stragglers remained, she pulled him aside. Her face was tight. It is not enough, she said quietly. We did well, but it is not enough. Owen felt frustration and helplessness war in his chest. We will find another way, he said. There is still time. Not much, Mira said. She looked around the tavern, her eyes sad. I am grateful for what we did here tonight. But I think I need to accept that I am going to lose this place. No, Owen said, more sharply than he intended. Do not give up yet. Mira looked at him, and he saw the exhaustion in her face. I am not giving up. I am being realistic. Owen wanted to argue, but he did not have the words. Instead, he helped her clean up and drove Lily home in silence, his mind churning. There had to be something he was missing. some option he had not considered. It came to him in the middle of the night, a wild idea that made his heart race. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking it through. It was risky. It would change everything. But it might work. In the morning, he made his decision. Owen went to the Valley's land office, a small building run by a stern man named Marcus who managed property transactions. Owen waited until Marcus had finished with another customer, then approached the desk. "I want to sell my land grant," Owen said. Marcus looked up, surprised. "Your farmstead, why?" "I need the money," Owen said. Marcus frowned. "That is a permanent decision, Owen. Once you sell a land grant, you cannot get it back." "I know," Owen said, "but I need to do this." Marcus studied him for a long moment, then he pulled out the necessary forms. "If you are sure." Owen signed the papers, his hand steady. He knew exactly what he was doing. The farmstead had been his and Margaret's dream, but Margaret was gone. And Mira was here, alive and struggling, and if he could save her dream, he would. Marcus gave him a price that was fair, though lower than Owen had hoped. It would not cover Mira's entire debt, but combined with the money from the feast and what Owen had managed to save, it would be close. Very close. Owen left the land office and went directly to the tavern. He found Mira in the kitchen, kneading bread. She looked up when he entered and her expression shifted to concern. "Owen, what is wrong? You look strange." "I have the money," Owen said. Mira froze. "What?" "I sold my farmstead," Owen said. "Combined with what we made from the feast, it is enough to pay off Harding." Mira stared at him, the bread dough forgotten in her hands. "You did what?" "I sold the farm," Owen repeated, "to save the tavern." Mira set down the dough and walked toward him, her face a mix of shock and horror. "Owen, no, you cannot do that. That is your home, your livelihood." "It is land," Owen said. "This place is your dream. I could not stand by and watch you lose it." "But where will you and Lily live? How will you support her?" Mira's voice was rising. "I will figure it out," Owen said. "I can find work. We can rent a place." "No," Mira said. "No, Owen, I cannot let you do this. Take the money back. Cancel the sale." "It is done," Owen said, "and I do not regret it." Mira made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. "You are the most stubborn, foolish, wonderful man I have ever met." Owen felt his heart stutter at the look in her eyes. "I just could not let you lose this place, Mira. You have worked too hard. You deserve to have your dream." Mira closed the distance between them and took his hands in hers. "Owen, you cannot give up everything for me." "I am not giving up everything," Owen said quietly. "I am choosing what matters most." They stood there, hands clasped, the truth of his feelings hanging in the air between them. Owen saw the moment Mira understood, saw her eyes widen and soften. "Owen," she whispered. "I care about you, Mira," Owen said. "More than I probably should. More than I know how to say. I have been trying to write a thank you note for months, and I keep failing because it is not just gratitude. It is more than that. It is everything." Mira's eyes filled with tears. "You cannot love me because I gave your daughter a birthday party." "I do not," Owen said. "I love you because you are kind and strong and you make the best bread I have ever tasted. I love you because you smile at Lily like she is precious. I love you because you work until you are exhausted and never complain. I love you because when I am with you, I feel like I am home." Mira let out a shaky breath. "I thought I was the only one feeling this way. I have been so afraid to hope." "Hope," Owen said. "Please." Mira stepped closer, and Owen could feel the warmth of her, could see the tears on her cheeks. "I love you too," she said. "I have for weeks. Maybe longer, I just did not know how to say it." Owen raised one hand to cup her face, his thumb brushing away a tear. "Then let me say it for both of us." He leaned in and kissed her. It was soft and tentative at first, a question. But Mira answered by wrapping her arms around his neck and kissing him back. and Owen felt the world narrow to just her. Just the taste of her lips and the warmth of her body against his. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Mira rested her forehead against his. "You still should not have sold your farm." "Too late," Owen said, "but I have an idea if you are willing to listen." "I am listening," Mira said. "Let me stay," Owen said. "Here at the tavern, I can work with you, help you run this place. We can build it into something even better. And Lily and I can live in the rooms upstairs. We can be a family if you will have us." Mira pulled back to look at him, her eyes searching his face. "Are you sure? The valley will talk. A human man and an orc woman living together, working together. People will have opinions." "Let them," Owen said. "I do not care what they think. I care about you, about us." Mira smiled, her tusks catching the light, and it was the most beautiful thing Owen had ever seen. "Then yes, stay, build this with me, be my family." Owen kissed her again, slower this time, savoring it. When they broke apart, he said, "I should probably tell Lily, though I think she already knows." Mira laughed, the sound bright and free. "She is a perceptive child." "She is," Owen agreed, "and she adores you." They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, and Owen felt a peace settle over him that he had not felt since before Margaret died. This was right. This was where he was meant to be. Together, they paid off Sela's Harding. Owen took grim satisfaction in handing over the money and watching the man's disappointed expression when he realized he would not be taking the tavern. Mira kept her face carefully neutral, but once Harding was gone, she allowed herself a moment of pure relief. "It is really over," she said. "The tavern is really mine." "Ours," Owen corrected gently, "if you will have me as a partner." "I will," Mira said, "in every way." They told Lily that evening. She took the news that they were moving to the tavern with equanimity, and the news that Owen and Mira were together with delight. "Does this mean Miss Mira will be my new mama?" Lily asked. Mira looked startled, then touched. "If that is all right with you," she said carefully. Lily nodded vigorously. "I would like that. Will you teach me to make cakes?" "I will teach you everything I know," Mira promised. Owen moved what little they had from the farmstead to the rooms above the tavern. It did not take long. The furniture was sparse, and most of what mattered fit into a single wagon load. He took one last look at the little house where he had been happy with Margaret, where Lily had been born, and felt a pang of grief. But when he turned the wagon toward the tavern, toward Mira waiting with Lily, the grief eased. He was not leaving the past behind. He was carrying it with him, letting it inform the future without defining it. The months that followed were busy and good. Owen and Mira worked together to expand the tavern's offerings. Owen built new shelves and tables, repaired the parts of the building that had been neglected, and learned to be a competent cook under Mira's patient instruction. Mira handled the business side, managing supplies and finances with a careful eye. The valley folk adjusted to the new arrangement. Some had opinions, usually muttered when they thought Owen and Mira could not hear, but most simply accepted it. The food was good, the prices fair, and the tavern was a warm, welcoming place. That was what mattered. Lily thrived. She learned to bake under Mira's guidance, and her little hands became skilled at kneading dough and rolling pastry. She chattered constantly, filling the tavern with her bright voice, and Mira doted on her with a warmth that made Owen's chest ache in the best way. One evening, as they closed up after a busy day, Mira said, "I have been thinking." "About what?" Owen asked, wiping down the last table. "About us," Mira said. "About making this official." Owen looked up, his heart skipping. "Official how?" Mira crossed the room to stand in front of him. "I want to marry you, Owen, if you will have me." Owen felt joy flood through him, bright and overwhelming. "I will have you, yes, absolutely yes." Mira grinned, her tusks prominent, and kissed him. Good, because I already asked Lily and she gave her approval. Owen laughed. Of course you did. They were married a month later in the tavern, with the valley folk as witnesses. It was a simple ceremony conducted by the traveling priest who made rounds through the frontier settlements. Lily stood beside them, beaming, and when the priest pronounced them wed, the gathered crowd cheered. The celebration afterward was raucous and joyful. People ate and drank and danced, and Owen held Mira's hand through it all, marveling at how his life had changed. A year ago, he had been a widower struggling to keep his head above water. Now he had a wife he loved, a daughter who was happy, and a purpose that filled his days. Late in the evening, when most of the guests had gone home and Lily had fallen asleep on a bench, Mira pulled Owen outside into the cool night air. "I have something for you," she said. She reached into her apron and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Owen took it, curious, and unfolded it. It was a thank-you note, written in Mira's careful script. "Dear Owen," it read, "thank you for the birthday party you helped make possible. Thank you for the shutter and the chimney and the 1,000 small kindnesses. Thank you for staying when I needed help. Thank you for loving me when I thought I would be alone forever. Thank you for being the kind of man who writes thank-you notes even when words fail, who gives everything even when it costs him dearly, who makes me believe in goodness. I do not have the words to properly express what you mean to me, but I will spend the rest of my life trying to show you. With all my love, Mira." Owen read it twice, his throat tight. "Mira," he managed. "I know you never finished your note," Mira said softly, "but I wanted you to know that you do not need to. You have shown me everything I needed to know in every action, every choice, every moment you have stood by me. The note does not matter. What matters is this: us." Owen folded the note carefully and tucked it into his pocket next to his heart. "I love you," he said. "I love you too," Mira said. They stood together under the stars, and Owen thought about crumpled drafts and impossible words and the way that sometimes the most important things could not be written. They had to be lived. The seasons turned. Winter gave way to spring, and the tavern flourished. Owen and Mira worked side by side, building not just a business but a life. They had hard days and good days, arguments and laughter, the ordinary struggles and joys of any partnership. Lily grew, her skill in the kitchen improving until she could make a passable loaf of bread on her own. She started helping with the customers, charming them with her bright smile and earnest questions. And then, as summer reached its peak, Mira told Owen she was pregnant. He had been chopping vegetables for the evening stew when she said it, and he very nearly cut his own finger off in surprise. "You are sure?" he asked. "I am sure," Mira said, a smile playing at her lips. "Are you happy?" Owen set down the knife and crossed the kitchen to pull her into his arms. "I am very happy," he said into her hair. "Terrified, but very happy." Mira laughed. "That is fair." They told Lily that evening. She was delighted at the prospect of a sibling, immediately declaring that she would teach the baby everything she knew. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Mira continued to work, though Owen made sure she was not overdoing it, much to her amused exasperation. He fussed over her, made sure she was eating properly, insisted she rest when she looked tired. "I am not fragile," Mira told him one afternoon. "I know," Owen said, "but I am allowed to care." Mira softened. "You are, and I love you for it." In the late autumn, as the leaves turned gold and the air grew crisp, Mira went into labor. Owen sent Lily to stay with a neighbor and fetch the midwife. The labor was long and hard, and Owen spent most of it pacing outside the bedroom, his heart in his throat. But when the midwife finally emerged and told him he had a daughter, healthy and strong, relief washed over him so intensely he had to sit down. He went into the bedroom and found Mira propped up in bed, exhausted but smiling. a tiny green-skinned baby in her arms. "Meet our daughter," Mira said softly. Owen sat on the edge of the bed and looked down at the baby. She was perfect, small and wrinkled and beautiful, with a dusting of dark hair and her mother's pointed ears. "Hello, little one," Owen whispered. The baby yawned, revealing tiny gums, and Owen felt his heart expand. "What should we name her?" Mira asked. They had discussed names but had not settled on one. Now, looking at the baby, Owen thought of all the light she would bring into their lives. "Flora," he said, "like the flowers you love." Mira smiled. "Flora, I like that." Flora Ellsworth became the heart of the household. Lily adored her little sister, and Owen and Mira navigated the sleepless nights and endless demands of a newborn with the patience of people who had weathered harder things. The tavern continued to thrive. Word had spread beyond the valley about the good food and warm atmosphere, and travelers began to make a point of stopping there. Owen and Mira hired help, a young woman named Beth who was eager to learn the kitchen trade. Life settled into a new rhythm, one that felt rich and full. One evening, after the tavern had closed and the children were asleep, Owen sat at the kitchen table with a piece of paper and a pen. He had not tried to write the thank you note in over a year, but the urge had returned. This time, the words came easily. "Dear Mira," he wrote. "I've tried to write this note so many times, and every time I fail because words are not big enough to hold what I feel. You gave my daughter a birthday party when I could not. You gave me a purpose when I was lost. You gave me love when I thought I would never feel it again. You gave me a home, a family, a life that I treasure more than I can say. I do not know what I did to deserve you, but I will spend every day trying to be worthy of the gift. Thank you for everything. Thank you for being you. All my love always, Owen." He folded the note carefully and stood. Mira was in the other room, sitting by the fire with a mending basket. She looked up when he entered and smiled. "What is that?" she asked, nodding at the note. "Something I have been meaning to give you," Owen said. He handed it to her. Mira unfolded it and read, her expression softening with every line. When she finished, she looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "Owen, this is beautiful." "It took me long enough," Owen said, sitting beside her. Mira set the note aside and took his hand. "It was worth the wait." They sat together in the firelight, their hands intertwined, and Owen thought about all the drafts he had crumpled, all the words he had struggled to find. In the end, it had not been about finding the perfect words. It had been about finding the courage to be honest, to be vulnerable, to say what mattered. And what mattered was this: love, freely given and gratefully received. The years continued to unfold, each one bringing new challenges and joys. The tavern became a landmark, known throughout the region as a place of good food and warm welcome. Owen and Mira became fixtures of the valley, respected and liked, their relationship a quiet refutation of the prejudices that some still held. Lily grew into a capable young woman, her skill in the kitchen rivaling her mother's. Flora grew into a bright, curious child, full of questions and laughter. And Owen and Mira grew old together, their love deepening with every shared sunrise, every challenge overcome, every quiet moment stolen in the midst of busy days. One evening, many years after that first birthday party, Owen sat on the porch of the tavern watching the sun set over the valley. Mira came out and sat beside him, her hand finding his automatically. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How lucky I am," Owen said. "How a crumpled thank you note led to all of this." Mira smiled. "You never did give me that first note." "No," Owen agreed. "But I think I finally said everything I needed to say." "You did," Mira said. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You really did." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the light fade, and Owen felt a contentment so deep it was almost overwhelming. He had lost much in his life, had faced grief and hardship and struggle. But he had also found love, had built a family, had created a life that mattered. And it had all started with a simple act of kindness, a birthday party for a little girl, and a man who did not know how to say thank you. In the end, he had found the words. But more importantly, he had found the life those words described. A life filled with love and purpose, and the quiet joy of knowing that he was exactly where he was meant to be. As the stars began to appear overhead, Owen squeezed Mira's hand, and she squeezed back, and no other words were needed. They had said everything that mattered, not in notes and letters, but in the life they had built together, one day at a time, one kind act after another, one shared moment of grace. And that, Owen thought, was the best thank you of all.